Welcome to Drones in Construction, where innovation meets the job site. I'm your host, Jim Gibson, and we're launching episode 2 of season 2 with a powerful conversation to set the tone for what's ahead. Today, we're joined by veteran drone pilot Jose Rocha, a San Diego-based pro with over 800 flight hours under his belt, including more than 150 in fixed-wing aircraft. With a background in aviation and a sharp eye for infrastructure, Jose has mapped more than 60,000 acres of solar energy projects and brings a grounded, real-world perspective on what it takes to succeed in commercial drone operations. So, whether you're in construction, energy, or just fascinated by drone tech, you're going to want to hear this. So, without further ado, let's introduce Jose. Jose,
Hey, Jim.
how are you doing tonight?
How you doing?
Great.
I'm
It's
fantastic.
great.
How about you?
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, I am so happy to have you on our Drones and Construction podcast. It's been a long time coming, man. We've been working together, having a good professional work experience. Now it's time to take it to the next level and get you on our show and let's learn about your background and learn what you're doing to change the world out there in drones and construction. So welcome.
Thank you, man. Trying to, man. One flight at a time, man. That's all we can do.
Yeah, well, you're always busy. I mean, I see you putting up content on YouTube. For those of you who want to follow up with Jose, he's at Commercial Drones Dispatch. He's based in San Diego. You know, Jose, like I said, has a vast amount of experience as a professional drone pilot. And we're going to dig into some of your background. We're going to find out what got you started in drones. We're going to ask, some of the more technical aspects of what you see from the vision that you've gained working on construction projects, among many other. I talked about the solar and the preamble when we were introducing you. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. But let's start off by just how'd you get started in drone tech?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, I've always had like a passion for aviation. I was born literally underneath a flight path to Watsonville Airport in Northern California. So, I mean, I'd say 10 to 20 times a day, I'd hear a little plane just zooming overneath, and that just got my interest in aviation. I ended up taking, a few years later in college, I ended up going for my private pilot license. That's what got me here down to San Diego, where I ended up getting my private pilot license here, my instrument rating, commercial rating, and went down that road. Eventually, I ended up pivoting into business. I started my own detailing company. A few years later, my wife actually, she got me a Sharper Image drone, this little $40 drone that I didn't open for like 8 months. It was just sitting in its package. Then I opened it up one day. I flew it once, and it was like, oh my God, this is the possibility. Just a long story short, I ended up attending a 3-day seminar from the Sky Eye Network. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Drone
Yep.
Boss.
Yep.
But
Oh, yeah.
in 2018, I signed up to one of their 3-day seminars, and I signed up literally the day before it started. So it was just like this last minute advertisement. Went to the seminar, and that just opened my eyes to the possibility that I could actually do this for a living. So that was back in 2018. And that's initially how I basically got started as a drone pilot. I used a lot of my aviation training, my Part 61 training that just transferred over directly to my Part 107. So when I took the test, honestly, I didn't study at all because I looked at some of the question and it was all review for me. So I went and took my test, got my 107, and just started basically doing what any other pilots or any other aerial photographer does and start looking for jobs, looking for clients. Ended up settling in construction because I got picked up as the pilot here on the ground in San Diego for a project. There was this Drone Brothers. They had a project down here, and one of their pilots, he was an older gentleman. He had some health concerns, but then he couldn't fly anymore. So somehow I got the call, and I ended up I've done about 5 or 6 projects with Drone Brothers now in construction. And the reason I like construction, it's consistent. It's every other week, every month. So it's more of a long-term contract instead of on the other end, like the real estate gigs or these one-off gigs where you'll get a job, then you might not hear from the client for another 2 years, another 3 years, another 6 months.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
construction, it's more of a consistent, more consistent work, basically. So that's kind
Yeah.
of what led me to focus more in construction was that long-term revenue that you get from these contracts.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned going back into what you said earlier about getting your Part 107 and having the experience with Pilot Ground School. A lot of folks who are watching this and are not intimately familiar with the process of getting your Part 107, which is essentially the FAA certificate to qualify you to fly commercially drones, is that it emulates many of the aspects of ground school flight training for a pilot, a manned flight pilot, which to somebody like me, when I got my 107, that was new territory for me. And so looking at sectional maps and thinking about traffic patterns at an airport and understanding how to navigate airspace, and airspace itself can be quite a daunting experience. I think you had a leg up in terms of being able to get off the ground, no pun intended, really fast with that ground school training that you did as a manned aircraft pilot.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, people think that the drone test has something to do with drones. It has absolutely zero to do with flying a drone. It all has to do with the airspace, with regulations. But yeah, I mean, you could literally take the test and not have ever flown a drone or even know how to fly a drone. But if you know the airspace and the regulations, you can actually get your 107 certification that way. There's a lot more drone specific questions involved. I've been taking my renewals and it's starting to bleed in more
Right.
more drone specific technicalities, I guess. But yeah, I'd say more over 80% of it's just the airspace. Because technically the FAA does consider these aircraft and you're flying up there in the same airspace that helicopters and other airplanes are flying. So they want you to actually know what you're doing up there and what you're doing with your drone and what airspace you're putting it up there with.
Yeah, as you say that, Jose, and let's assume that a construction project executive is listening to this podcast right now, what would you tell them when they're saying, well, yeah, I got a guy here on the ground that's part of our crew that has a Best Buy drone, granted a DJI drone, but he has a Best Buy drone and we use him for aerial photography. What are some of the things that you would advise that project executive to consider when it comes to that type of approach to getting the progress monitoring shots?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I've joked about this with other people. It's like, well, yeah, I can go and buy a hammer too, and I can go buy, some concrete, and I can lay the concrete foundation too. But I don't have the experience and the knowledge to actually. I can get it done and make it seem like, hey, it looks good. But once you actually, I mean, and the best way I could do is basically compare what they're giving to the client to what we can provide. And I mean, the basics would be like using the thirds rule in photography. Yeah, you can get a drone and you can take a picture, but are you actually composing it the right way? Are you shooting an HDR? Are you making those colors pop? Are you legal? I mean,
Yeah.
if you can get a Best Buy drone and yeah, fly it over a construction site, but legally, if you don't have the license, that's an illegal operation already. And I mean, if you want to be 100% legal in your big project, you have to like dot all your I's, cross all your T's. Let's say a bird strikes that Best Buy drone or your worker's drone and it falls and it does some damage. There's going to be an investigation, especially if someone gets hurt, and then they're going to find out, hey, this guy was flying without the proper license, no insurance, and then it gets tricky. One of the projects that I'm doing right now in Chula Vista, the superintendent actually has a drone. He's been wanting to fly, but the company prohibited him from flying because he didn't have his require. Even though he has a drone, knows how to fly. I'm pretty sure he's flown it before. But what it seems like he told the company, hey, can I fly this myself? They basically shut him down and made him basically get someone that's licensed and insured.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move on the company's perspective because the company must consider the liability factor. And I mean, just think about what happened to the guy that was flying the drone during the fires here in LA and it ran into the tanker. The liability of that individual from that perspective was a massive issue for that individual. Think about that multiplied with a commercial operation, a construction company, talking about how that actually creates havoc within your project schedule and ultimately the company itself.
Yeah, definitely. On top of that, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's that. There's also the experience where the drones and the software doesn't always work 100% of the time. So if you're
Yep.
relying on your guy that's also doing drywall to get his drone out and something's not working, he's not going to have the experience to get that phone up or troubleshoot on the spot. Where, I mean,
Right.
I always have two drones ready to go. So I have my Mavic 3 Enterprise and my Air 2S. So if for whatever reason one of them doesn't work, I forget it at home, I still have another one in my truck ready to go and actually pull off the job. And I mean, there's been countless times where I've had to replace like the lightning cable that's I've been using for years, and drone deploy wouldn't work, or something wouldn't load, or something. You have to kind of just always have redundancy systems, basically to get that data. And if you're not doing this every day, you're not going to have that experience to actually have the 100 flights where one of those flights you couldn't get off the ground, but you figure it out as you're there. And that's, I mean, that's another talking point of why hire, professionals. And I mean, construction crews know this. They hire drywall guys for the drywall. They hire concrete guys for the concrete. They hire the
Yep.
electricians for the electricals. They each have their own profession. But yeah, that's, I mean, that's what, but because yeah, there's a lot of superintendents do know about drones and at least know one worker that's on site or one nephew or a neighbor that has a drone and that can fly the drone. But yeah, there's definitely a difference in quality and just I guess the reliability and consistency of hiring someone that does this for a living.
Yep. You had mentioned, getting more technical now because we work together on projects ongoing right now. In the interest of full disclosure, Jose and I have worked for several years together on projects. When you're talking about construction project executives, deliverables actually are becoming more complex. We are working on a project, like I said, where they're starting to ask for more data that helps them to keep their projects on time and on budget. Some of the deliverables like timelines and panoramas and things that require additional software to process the data. Talk a little bit about that. You'd mentioned drone deploy before. What's your experience with that? And what would you tell a project executive about utilizing software to actually process the data?
So yeah, there's two different types of data that I consider in construction. One is the technical, the data driven, and then there's the creative side. So the data, the data and technicals are the photography that's taking at the same altitude, same angle each time. That way you can go back 6 months, 8 months and get that time capsule shot of the progress. And same thing with the video. You can go back 3 months, 1 month, and get that same flight, same pattern. And on top of that, there's also the drone deploy basically controls the drone. So you do an autonomous flight that just repeated over and over each time you're on site. That gives the stakeholders, the superintendent, consistent information. If they know they really like the third picture or the third perspective, they're always going to go to the third picture and look at that. But if that changes, if the third picture now is at a different angle, it's not even about the same thing, it's not going to look so predictable for them. So that's the drone deploy really brings predictability and consistency, reliability to our deliverables.
Right.
You can go back on, I've done projects that are take 3 years for a site to be built. And if you go back a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years, that 10th shot or the first shot is going to be just the same as the most current one. And that way you can get before and afters.
Right. And you deliver like a photo report each time that has pages of all of the images, and each page you could go back to over time and actually go to page 4. And there's that cardinal view oblique of, say, the southwest corner of the project from the same altitude, every single report in and out. Right.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, if you want to start getting more advanced into advanced videography, you take the video and you can actually create an entire, I'd say a 30-second to 1 minute video of this entire building getting built from day zero to closeout, all in 30 seconds if you know how to edit it correctly. So yeah, that consistency is huge in that aspect. Drone Deploy, Pix4D, I mean, Litchi, the DJI Pilot 2, those are all software that controls the drone to get this type of consistency. I mean, we can get into mapping as well with you need,
Right.
I mean, you need autonomous flights with very specific overlaps and heights to be able to create the what we call orthomosaics or digital copies of the site that you can actually measure, take measurements, do volumetric measurements, surface area, and so forth. But yeah, you need some type of software to control the drone to be able to take those hundreds or thousands of pictures sometimes to be able to post process and get the data. On the other side, there's the creative where you're actually going in there and taking creative shots of the workers, of the concrete that's being poured, of whatever action or whatever phase of construction that site's going through. And that's more on the creative side where you have to kind of use your best judgment. It's like, hey, there's a bunch of workers here and they're really hammering along. But I'm going to take a time lapse and make them look really busy for the next 10 seconds while they're pouring this entire slab of concrete. And that just looks really cool. And I think a lot of...
I was just going to say, we have an example, sorry to interrupt. We have an example of that right now where the clients asked for that type of creative. What do they use that creative for?
So I think that's mainly used for, I mean, two things. One, to make themselves look better for their boss. So say the CBG ABC construction company has investors or the stakeholders that are paying millions and millions of dollars to get this built. They want to keep those investors happy, keep the money coming. So they're basically using these videos to show them something instead of like, oh yeah, we're actually doing good. We're on the 10th floor. Everything is looking really good. I mean, everything's good, versus actually showing them this thing actually getting built. They see 20, 30 people out there just cranking along and they're actually seeing visual progress instead of just written or, emailed confirmations that we're actually putting your money to use. So that's one aspect that I think they're using these more creative shots. Another reason APC company wants to use this to get more clients, to get more investors. Right. Say like, hey, look how good we are at building. Check out our pictures. This is an actual project that we're actually working on, and they could use that for their social media, for their LinkedIn, for their website. I think the current one that we're working on, they wanted it specifically for their website. And I mean, if they can actually show that they're building 500 units, they're going to have the ammunition to place a bid on the next project at 750 units or 1,000 units.
I was just going to say, if you're not paying attention to, and I know you are, like look at Brassfield Glory. I mean, they are using it as a massive informational tool, not only for key stakeholders, for investors, but also the local communities to keep them informed of what's being built in their backyard, right? So, I mean, there's just so many use cases for it, but every single day they're posting content on social media. So that's a key deliverable.
What company is this?
Brassfield and Gorey.
Okay, yeah. I do put a lot of content out on YouTube and LinkedIn.
Right.
But yeah, it's something that and obviously on my website as well. But yeah, it's something that if you're not showcasing what you can do, it's going to be really hard for clients to actually trust you when you're telling them that you can do it.
Right. So where do you see the biggest opportunity for drones in construction in the future? Put your forecasting hat on, and where is this going? Is it autonomous flight? Is it all contingent on BVLOS or UTM? I mean, what does this future look like for pilots and for construction project managers?
Honestly, right now, I'm s- I have a feeling that the creative side might take off a little bit faster than the technical side, just because social media is so powerful right now.
Right.
And the data side, the technical side of the data, where we take the same consistent pictures, that's it seems like it's going to be slower to be implemented into the procedures of the construction. Well, marketing, the marketing departments, they just want the pictures right away, and they want it every month. So I think the creative side might, in the short term, might take off a little bit faster, but in the long term, I think most Americans are going to be using both,
And that, I
especially
think
for
that has,
these
go
bigger
ahead.
projects that have stakeholders that are just spread out over states, and they have.
Right.
I mean, I've seen projects here in San Diego with companies that come from out of town to actually do the construction. The Gaylord Resort. There's so many vendors here from. A lot of them are not even from California that are here basically working on these big projects. And but yeah, I think that the creative side is always going to be, I mean, marketing is always going to be huge for
Right.
any construction company, and social media right now is it's hot. So I think in the short term, social media is going to be demanding a lot of our services, but in the long term, I think both the data side, the technical aspect of it's also going to be picking up. It's really hard to judge because I feel like each construction company works differently, much differently
Right.
than the next, and there's politics and there's so much involved that there's not a consistent way that I'm seeing that companies are, I guess, implementing drone technology. I've seen.
Yeah.
I just got hired by a company, Morrow Trenchless. They do trenching projects. So they wanted me to basically take these aerials of them actually putting a pipe in this project without actually digging out a trench. So they repiped I'd say 300 yards. It was a pretty good distance, but they only dig about 20% of what they typically do to replace a pipe. And I mean, I feel like they're only going to use this once for marketing for their website, and that's it. You know, they're not going to want updates every month because their entire project just takes 2 to 3 weeks. So if
Right.
they do use it, it's going to be more on the creative side, like to basically show off what their capabilities are to other potential projects or to other opportunities.
Yep. I think we experience the same thing, and I agree with you. The creative is going to be on the forefront for the short term, but the long term is really based on the rate of technology adoption. And we know in construction companies, like you said, there's varying levels of technology adoption, which seems contradictory to a certain degree, because in order to build a 30-story building, there has to be some technology, right? So to say that a construction company might be averse to technology adoption is a little bit of a misnomer, because there is inherently technology. But when it comes to new technology, they're slow to pick up. It was what I've learned. We had a discussion with some engineers of a major city in Southern California who were not quite clear that drones could do more than just what they call pretty pictures, right? So we've introduced them to infrastructure technology that utilizes LiDAR and RTK and also RGB and thermal to be able to do infrastructure measurements, point clouds, 3D models, things like that, that they're going, oh my gosh, it's sort of opened up our eyes to possibilities beyond what typically their creative department was doing for them with drones, right? So now here enter Aerial Decisions, and now we're working with them in that capacity. So it's an interesting dynamic as we evolve into a major city that's not really yet adopted drone technology from a data perspective yet. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, I do see, I mean, in the, I'd say 5 to 15, 20 years, bigger projects utilizing docked drones that don't require a pilot to be on site,
Right.
like the DJI Dock 2, and I think the Dock 3 is already out. But that drone is actually being utilized at the project's already completed, but at the Gaylord Resort in Chula Vista down here in San Diego, it seems like it's, and the only reason I think it's a dock drone because the flight's the same every single time, and it doesn't it looks autonomous. It looks autonomous that basically it's the same flight every single time with no pilot input of the footage that's being posted on the Gaylord website. So in my eyes, that's an autonomous drone because there's basically, I mean, the footage is, I consider it horrible. It's not smooth. It's really rickety. It's like, but if you can pause it, you'll get the data. You'll see the
Right.
progress. On another note, what I also foresee in the future is a lot of ground robotics, like the Boston Dynamics, the little dog looking.
Dogs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they did. The robot dogs with 360 cameras, 360 sensors for video and LiDAR that will basically walk the entire site, walk every floor of the construction to record the progress, basically capturing a time capsule of that day, not just from the outside aerial perspective, but also from the inside. So I feel like that is the future, autonomous drones, but that's going to be
Right.
more specific to the just the data driven, the consistent shots, not the creative side. That's where, you know, the FPV pilots come in. We use our creativity, our close up shots, and so forth to focus on the action. That's really what the marketing team wants to see. Yeah, the marketing team can use those still photos that are consistent, but if you can get them a juicier, better picture of the action of some really fun detail, that's what they really want to post.
Right. That's cool. So, hey, in respect for your time, I want to make sure that we get this last question in, which is really, I think, the key here. If you're in a room with a construction project executive and you had one thing to say to them about why they should take drones from a data perspective, from a creative perspective, seriously, what would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them that there's going to be a lot more transparency and in what's actually going out, what's actually happening at the work site, and that information can be easily, I guess, conveyed to all the stakeholders. So there's going to be more transparency in the project of what's actually going on there. And that's one aspect, and another aspect is like, man, your competitors already doing it, or
Yeah.
your competitors, you know, just try to build that urgency. And yeah, a lot. And I feel right now it's just the easier we make it for them to actually get this data, the more likely it is for them to say yes. I feel like a lot of people, they start looking into it, then they start looking into airspace. And if they don't understand, they're going to just see that as a red flag. Oh, airspace, we need a pilot that has a license. They're just going to see all these red flags, but that's where we come in. If we can just basically bring down those red flags, like we have a green flag for the airspace, we have green flags to give you this every month, that's when they're more likely to say yes. But yeah, and I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If I was with some executives, I would just show them what other companies are doing and what we're actually providing to Ryan Construction every month on their projects. Show them a video, and once they see their competitor doing something, they're going to want to do it too. It's
Yep.
like, man, if you see a neighbor with a, you know, with a pool and you don't have, you
I was going
kind
to
of want
say,
a pool, you know, but yeah, it's just
especially here in
basically,
Southern California.
yeah, yeah. And I think the cost of us being out on the field versus how much these construction sites are dumping into these projects, it'll be a no-brainer. That
Right.
I think they spill more coffee in a day out at these
Yeah.
construction sites that it would cost for them to like
Yeah.
basically hire
Yeah.
us.
And don't forget the liability factor. I mean, it's sort of it reminds me of the commercial, "You can pay me now or you can pay me later."
Yeah.
That quip, it resonates here because, you know, you might be thinking that it's not worth hiring a drone, a certified FAA qualified pilot, licensed and insured, to come out and do it when your own guy has a drone. But if you think about going back to what you said about, hey, that drone hits a bird, or more importantly, it just falls out of the sky. How many times have we, as many missions as we have flown, it's not uncommon to see a drone drop, right? When it drops, what's it dropping on? Is it dropping on a person? Is it dropping on a car? I mean, and who's going to get sued is the deepest pocket. So ultimately, having that type of risk is, tantamount to making the wise decision of hiring the qualified professional to come in and do the job. Like you said, you're not going to get your brother-in-law to come do the drywall. You're not going to get your sister to do the concrete, right? You need to
Yeah.
hire professionals who are qualified, certified, licensed, and bonded. So It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, and
really,
also you have to think these. I mean, if someone does own a drone at the site and they're not flying it, like, how's the battery maintenance? Like, how's the prop maintenance? Are you
you know,
aware that if you're not landing at 20 to 30%, there's going to be a time where you're going to come and try to land at 25%. You're just going to fall out of the sky because you've been pushing that lipo to the limit, and then you just have a voltage drop and these are just things that you kind of just learn from experience. I've only had one drone drop from the sky, and this was out at a solar field. And I'm pretty sure it was because I encountered a dust, I don't know what they call it, dust twister.
yes, dust
uh,
storm.
Dust storm, yeah, yeah, and it just those just basically come out of nowhere. They just kind of, I mean, it's windy out there, and but yeah, that's been, and luckily there was no one out there. It was just basically all desert. But
Right. Yeah. I was going to close with asking you what one of the crazier missions that you've been on, and you just told us the one with the. I think how are you going to top that one? Right, you got a
no,
drone in the air above a solar farm, and a twister, a dust storm comes through and takes it and drops it like a rock. A rock. That's
no, yeah. So
crazy.
that has been. So I was mapping at Oberon 1 and 2. This was a solar site, a solar farm that was being built in Desert Center. It's about 3 hours from San Diego, and I was flying a fixed wing, single prop, fixed wing drone, the SenseFly EBX with the SOTA camera. And I mean, it's such a different animal to fly because these things,
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically gliders with a rocket engine in the middle. They're out there, they're screaming. This thing had about 60 to 70-minute flight times, had 12 batteries, and I was covering about 2,500 acres of I was mapping out 2,500 acres of solar farm in a 4,700 acre site. So, I mean, from one end to another end, you could drive. It was like a 2 hour drive from one end to the other. And but yeah, the winds out in the desert are ruthless, and yeah, that's definitely one of my more memorable projects. Is that when you're out there and using fixed wing drones, which is just
Right.
totally different flight experience.
Right.
You have to coordinate the flight, the landing. You have to crash land them. Like literally every landing is a crash landing. So after you
Right.
crash land it, you have to literally figure out what broke, what didn't break, try to repair it on the spot. That way you can get back in the air in the next 20 to 30 minutes as you're uploading literally thousands and thousands of pictures that this
Right.
drone took in 90 minutes. So yeah, that was definitely one of my more memorable, I guess, projects. Including that one time that, yeah, I was mapping out the perimeter. So in smaller sections, I would use just my DJI, my quadcopter, because it
Right.
would be more efficient in the smaller areas. And that's when I encountered that dust bunny or dust storm and basically took one of my drone downs. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we haven't seen any of those on our mutual projects that we work on together, and let's hope we don't. In the meantime, Jose, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you were able to join us on this podcast. And by the way, folks, I will put information in the speaker notes down below when we post this video on our podcast channel, so that you know how to reach Jose. I'll put your website in there as well. And Jose, again, thank you so much for joining us on Drones in Construction. You really are a true professional and somebody who I am very proud to work with. Every project we work on, my first thought is, Jose, where's Jose? He's my guy. And I'm grateful for that too. So thank you for joining us on season 2, episode 2 of our Drones in Construction podcast. And have a super Tuesday night.
I appreciate you, Jim. I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.